Hello, there's a former judge named Judge Napolitano who has a YouTube channel, and I'll put a link to it in the information section of this video. But his YouTube channel's name is Judging Freedom. There's a Joshua Julian and there's a Ray Cololo who also rolls with a Bob Chase who confessed. Bob Chase confessed. Phil Cololo is one of the ones involved with them with whiting forensics through time. Since I was a kid, then as an adult, I caught them with abuses of kids, planting evidence as roles, predicate acts with facts on our campuses. These are foreign and domestic medical families associated with the kids of the interbranch intelligence, and the difference of that, or the other ones, the foreign and domestic, and or criminal enterprises at the same time. They are not legitimately well-marked police forms and interests, in other words, originally and still. And everyone knows it and will admit this, except for how people fake things on social media because they have roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases. These same ones from Connecticut, and the courts and the lawyers of both sides, family members of the courts, the lawyers, all that difference of that in the news at the same time, planting the same sequence shifts. And federal evidence is collusion / that's also effective for them. They don't even know. Everyone's attached to faked and changed recorded reality with others and locations with others and transcripts in courts. These are people increasingly. There's a Judge Killian and there's a Judge Smith who through the years spoke fake things in records, who had time collusions with digital offenders of kids, and since before that, who are also ones with medical offenders of kids and their foreign and domestic family members, putting fake transcripts into databases, fake ties to people, fake motivations for it, roles with all natures of crime scenes, all natures of all readings of the law, left out what nature shows us. See, one of the reasons I'm bringing up Judge Napolitano and his Judging Freedom YouTube channel is because I heard him bring up natural law. And I've been observing since I was a kid, roles with kids and adults as collusions with things like the black pupils' whites of eyes and other things others assigned for it, and how they got away with pretending that's significance with subject treatments, let alone what they call topic treatments. In other words, everyone's being used to measure and maintain defended, abridged styles and natures of logic, of positive and negative treatments, styles of getting away with it, for example, by pretending it's about politics, pretending politics have value they don't, when there were still roles with changing what our founders communicated for themselves and for their roles with James Madison's plan. But see, we have that other communicated for themselves and for James Madison's plan. And we had additionally, there are other apparent motivations, natures, and interests, real ones too, but even the real ones are mixed, used to screen the real one that counts. But that's uses remotely of all individual groups and simultaneous difference defenses. So for example, syntactically, this is where we are quality as fact treatment nature. As facts / fact treatment nature. See, but these are the facts that came first. See, the styles, in other words, and mandated law is not followed offensively. As collusion with all sides of cases, or the difference of the court's roles, or the prisons tied to them, or the state corrections offices, or the state judicial branch offices. The difference of the guilt of them there, or the people next to them too. Forgiveness is also not to leave out. The breaching method. And how to discern it. Because this is where and how. It has roles with it. That's one of the answers. Replace them. Like what caused slavery. A human fact treatment nature breaching method did. A predicate acts with facts delivery system method. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police form, I'm not a judge. But clearer than day. the lawyers, police forms, and the judges will stand behind our act, our Anti-Archetypal Criminal Enterprise Act, and countries A through Z will too, because we're going to do it in a way that is wanted everywhere at once. Otherwise, and if there's exceptions, we're going to censor it. But see, tactical ulterior from these systems, how they use differences in sense, any words. See, we're going to examine the relativity, how definitions of principle can't defend themselves, and afford to have discerned this principle about why and how our founders behind James Madison's plan had to force the other founders. And they wanted us to understand about how those laws were entrenched sickly distinctly as a fact, cheap nature, torture, extortion, slavery method against everyone sickly distinctly. And using black and white to measure and maintain other things, others ourselves communicated for nature and not self-value as the style who's going to be tied to the database, etc., or that person's sense. Not collusion /S with suits and ties, counters, and exceptions used remotely. That's how self-value. Increasingly arrays all sides of cases. In other words, you guys bring up still all this time culture, racism. You leave out the breaching method. You don't bring up racism as blamed in front of kids if you're about science. If you know it's a breaching method. And those people who pretend they don't realize that, that's why we have to pay attention to, because they're involved with more natures of organized crime with few people than there are houses and streets in the cities. There are only like 500 streets in Hartford, Connecticut. There's a Leahy family /S and a whole bunch of ones tied to them, involved with judges and prosecutors and other foreign and domestic doctors. They forge names of doctors, put fake conversations with people as people who've been doing this on campuses. And they've been exploiting three uses of the word class. There's kids that aren't in the same class with each other, but they're in the same grade. They've been planting things with timed collusion. Increasingly, there's a Sal Saviola and a Rich Dombrowski. I had no conversation with them. It was like weird when I went to one Cub Scout meeting and never went to another one. And then Rich Dombrowski called me on the phone out of nowhere and demonstrated to me collusion with people with foreign and domestic, planting fake things in databases, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people, and fake motivations for it. Now see what this did is it invests criminal enterprise, private ones, all sides of cases, the court's names, the people on office, the state judicial branch offices, state corrections offices, invest them to roles with business and having taken oaths, criminally foreign influence. And then they can't speak properly about things like crimes. And they're with the Department of Corrections, planting evidences with WFSB. They have stories with people with the name O'Brien, who are with unmarked police forms trying to establish, pretend where they're telling truth. They want to be on. They're already criminally foreign influence. They're not legitimately with the stories. With people, in other words, I don't know who all the O'Briens and all the names. They're switching names, and sometimes they only give you a last name. Like Wethersfield Police gave the last name Colol, but Bob Chase gave the full name, Phil Colol. But he's also involved with other Mendez Police and other ones, and Anthony Yagman involved with identity theft, frauds, slander, wire crimes, falsified police reports, and interreligious spots with sexual and medical offenders of little kids. Same families involved with elderly homes and the spots next to it, and the probation courts tied to it, especially sickly, distinctly tied, multiple probation courts families tied to each other, and them with the ones involved with wire crimes with the names on my street. That is also not them, because the police make everyone bring up each other's names, because that's how they do, where they're delaying and lying about what everything I say. So they're confessing too and pretending other. That's what they do when they're extorting people, torturing people, and roles with slavery. Because these are also black KKK themed, like a Joshua Julian is involved with some KKK confessions of Mark Violet and of Justin Klavinskas. I never had classes with them. They've been planting evidences with people all along Route 3 and all along Route 175, and with people near corners of streets, like on Saustine Highway and Town Line Drive. And my new and past neighbors record, confess, demonstrate, confirm too. That also rolls with their conversations with police and falsified police, federal evidence as crimes rules, child abuse rules, and with their educators involved, also with the names involved. And Heather Hansen and the Joe DeMauro record, confess, demonstrate, confirm roles with home break-ins, something to do with a Halpern family, and people that had conversations about me. I barely knew them. I mean, I love Mrs. Halpern and so her family, in other words. But there was like bad times going on. And it was things because use of location/S. And people with that big town, small town narrative are involved planting evidence as cover-ups, because that's all used remotely since founding. So we have a whole bunch of different countries. We have Koreans, Italians, Saudi Arabia, Kuwaiti general even, and his family involved with Wethersfield Police, with a Mazzucato bakery and a modern pastry with a Jonathan Maiano, people tied to them with sequence ships, identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidence as crimes, child abuse as roles. Also with the differences of teachers and of sports people tied to him. And his roles, acting, because the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and various natures of court judges with the same house involved with these games. And further, Whiting Forensics has confessions tied to this. And I haven't had a response for the principal child defender's confessions and what was actually recorded. They're putting fake things, pretended recorded, and fake motivations. And then they're bringing up, in other words, apparently they're hiding behind, because they have all kinds of the locations next to the colleges and the different cultural cliques, the way they appear in the news fit to subjects. They're involved with the intelligence community, hiding life progressions, but also predicate acts with facts. But that's why the difference between sometimes it's them that currently foreign influence, sometimes it's the interbranch. The difference of that is also recorded being and having been used since before our founders were born. For the method that uses also remotely styles, opinions, logic tied to how regarding if the suburbs are designed tactically denatured or not, and rolls with that torture, extortion, slavery method or not. See, but the nature of the debate has been persuaded by maintained effectively criminally foreign influence and tactically delusions raw estimations of formal and informal convictions by history's truth. See, that we have styles of self-value truths used for lies, where and how replaced are these principles, these principal things, how the breaching method used those methods of creating negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and making more and more the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. If people would be collusions with itself, with the positives and the negatives simultaneously, also keeping that, the value of that, and the cause of it, blame the other things, others, or selves, or sensing that body with convictions and short words proper, let alone a projection, and not being able to afford it discern. And needing to, for example, to point to wealth. See, because there's a difference between wealth. Our founders also communicated not for us to not lump wealth in without explaining how we had to start from nowhere, and explaining how we didn't have possession of our names, even all grouped, even everyone together. Otherwise, that body would be sensed. Even if there's a grouping of humanity, it came from locations, areas, and states, still styles, as collusions with this child abuse method. The only way to have peace is to blame at the same time the hyper foreign. Even if it's not there, we can observe it. There's an order, to the things like that, and the suits, like with the suburbs, tactically nature and the nature of debate regarding it. There are some things, if you debate the significant, if you want to debate that, even if it's a judge wants to debate that, assigning black and white to communicate other than nature does, is a predicate acts with facts, delivery system, method, roles. They would not, no, but there would be more than one judge who's going to take our, if anyone debates that, they're going to have inherent to active to progressive to their logic demonstration of the same things. See, but we have not examined logic properly. And so there are styles of people who blame things on politics. And they also need to be self-valued, the shell game of Democrat, Republican. Because this is about why and how. Roles with already having been sustained, roles with an entrenched, already have been sustained, entrenched. Human fact, human nature, breaching method that used/use is difference, /s, where we are all hyper-native. But first they prevent everyone that. Then they prevent even from being Native American. That which a portion of the Native Americans helped liberate the means to be for Native Americans. Because Native Americans are 1/3 of our founders. And they were already fighting with each other, not just with colonists, and colonists with themselves and with Native Americans before they were Native Americans. And after, since, because we're still bridged. We still have answers that have not been let. Discern, be discerned. So the way I read natural law, nature's identity is grouped 5 ways distinctly from how it's grouped 3 ways. See the value of sequence truth before the smallest finite detail as itself. It's how we know about an extent of the future now, progressively to come, because we know about the season, for example, and we know there's a portion of time we don't know about. But looking at these 5 parts, we examine